everyone, and welcome to an exciting new ARG 301 to be exact. Your good buddy, your good pal, and recent Cyclops, Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who's got two good eyes. I give you the Brent.
That's not true. I have no good eyes.
That's true. Yeah, you're
My eyes merged together makes 1/3 of an eye.
Our family was one of the many curses is not good eyesight.
Yeah,
but by God, we see crystal clarity with this week's gaming selection. So we're gonna be looking at games on the mysterious Spectravision / Spectravideo, which we'll get into that in a little while. Brent, how was your week? How are you doing?
Much better than you.
Yeah,
you had a rough one.
Yeah, just to quickly summarize, I suffered an eye injury last week that kept me out of action for the better part of a week. But my eyes are crystal clear now, and I'm ready to go, and I can see perfectly. I can see exactly what's been going on, and I'm ready to take care of some business. Now, I want to talk, because this is going to take a little while to explain this week's selection. But if you missed the show several weeks ago, that was on 300, we spun the wheel and we made the deal and we selected the Spectravision computer line. Now, what previous knowledge, Brent?
Zero. I'll just cut you off there. None. I had no idea this thing existed.
So you don't.
And I was so surprised.
Yeah.
I was stunned. I was completely baffled to find out this was a U.S. machine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it did sell other places.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because it sure as heck didn't sell worth a darn over here.
So this is sort of I'm not going to say it's complex, but it gets a little funky. The Spectravideo / Spectravision, there was a name issue, and so eventually they changed their name. Spectravideo International Limited was an American computer maker, and they also did software, which we'll get into that. It was originally called Spectravision before they changed it to Spectravideo because there was already a Spectravision trademark, and it was a hotel movie like service. Back in the old days, I don't know if you would remember this, but you would go to a hotel like a Holiday Inn or something. They would have their own in-house, and I use in-house in air quotes, like in-house TV channel.
Yeah.
And you would pay X amount of dollars to have access to certain. Sometimes it'd be a channel. Sometimes it'd be a whole just to watch a show.
You could basically rent movies.
It sort of predates video, like pay-per-view in some ways. It is pay-per-view, if for all intents and purposes. Spectravision was founded in '81, and they made video games at first. They made video games for the VIC-20, the Atari 2600 mostly, and a few others. And they also did computer versions of some of those games for the MSX and for DOS, a few others. They actually had some games you would have heard of. Amongst them, they did some pretty rare stuff. They did like Chase the Chuck Wagon was one of theirs for the 2600. That was like a
probably their most famous
mail away game. They eventually, believe it or not, despite the fact that they were started in America, they were eventually purchased by an outfit in the UK. Called Bondwell. You're not well, Mr. Bondwell. And that was in '88. That was in '88, if you can believe that. Yeah. So well in. What were they purchasing? Who knows? So these guys started out doing games. They did 11 games for 2600, including a game called Mangia, a Bumper Bash, and also one of the games we're talking about today also got a 2600 release, which we'll talk about that in a little while. So, the funniest thing, the first time I would have ever ran across these guys as a computer maker was on the old TV show, American video game-based TV show called Starcade.
Yeah.
They used to give away this computer. They had these bonus rounds on that show, and one of the mainstays was the Spectravideo computers. And I remember thinking to myself, what a weird thing this is. I'd never heard of these. And the reason it was so odd to me is that the computer had a joystick that was built into it.
Yes. And now, just to be fair, this was the Spectravision 318.
That's right. The original Spectravision had a joystick. Now, by the way, Spectravision they also did joysticks too. They would make joysticks. So that
very
was
famous joystick.
Yeah, the Quick Shot was there.
Yes.
The Quick Shot's a very, very popular line of joysticks, I guess worldwide.
And, well, it is also touted as being, now this is for debate, but it's touted to being the first consumer-based joystick.
Oh, you mean like a third-party stick? Interesting.
Yep.
I did see that. I can't confirm or deny. But you're talking the early days of consoles and computers. So you're thinking to yourself, these guys made computers. What are they? Well, this is where you go into a real weird area here. So they really made 3 big systems. We're going to sort of talk about all of them on this show because they're relevant. And they're actually super relevant in a weird way. So the first one, as Brent mentioned, was the SV318. This thing came out and this debuted in '83. This had a ROM cartridge slot. It also had the ability to do tapes and 5 1/4-inch floppy drive. Now get this. This computer had Microsoft Extended Basic on it. It had a Zilog Z80 that ran at, of course, what doesn't? Ran at 3.6 megahertz. It had 16K of memory. You could actually expand it to 32K, that's in '83. That's real good.
Yeah. And this also had a membrane keyboard, not a clicky keyboard.
Well, no, it was more like, I think it was more like a chiclety type keyboard.
Yeah.
It wasn't a membrane.
And
Odyssey had the membrane.
No,
one.
you're correct. You're correct.
But
it sold for an astoundingly low $299 American at the time.
Yeah, it was pretty good. The joystick that it had on it, I always wondered about I was never sold on that, but I mean, I guess including a joystick is something, I guess.
But the joystick is hard connected to the computer.
Yeah.
In my opinion, not a good idea.
Well,
and I don't mean like the cord is hard connected. I mean, replace your number pad with a joystick.
Yeah, so get this. So Microsoft Extended Basics on here, but it's not. So I saw this a couple places, and I was confused too. Microsoft Extended Basic is often referred to as MSX Basic.
Well,
yeah.
Go ahead, because there's something you've sort of not got correct.
Well, I mean, first of all, that's not what the MSX Basic means, but that's what everyone thinks it means.
But the Spectravision didn't run Extended Basic; it ran SV Basic.
Right. Well, that's my point. This
is important later on. Remember,
because this actually predates the MSX.
Yes.
So this was sort of like MSX Junior, like beta or Granddad.
I'll get into that since you brought it up. This came out before the MSX computers did, and Japan said, listen, we've got all these computers floating around, and we can't share each other's crap. It's stupid.
Yeah.
We're going to set a standard called MSX. Okay? And they said...
With Microsoft.
Yeah. We said, we're going to base this off of the 328, Spectravision 328. They said, it wasn't a direct one-to-one, but they said, we like what this computer's doing. That's going to be kind of the standard. So the same chipset, the same type of ports, your cassette, your floppy, that kind of stuff, the same type of RAM, and the sound chip is different, but the 328 has a lower version than what MSX ended up adopting. They're different chips. They're not the exact same chips. But where they kind of did Spectravision dirty, which they didn't say, hey, Spectravision, let's team up. They just kind of did this. Spectravision used SV Microsoft Basic, and the MSX used Extended Microsoft Basic. So that was just different enough to be bad, and all the I.O. calls when you're doing programming and stuff were just a little bit different, just different enough that they weren't compatible at this point.
You know what it reminds me of a little bit is the situation with the ZX Spectrum and the Timex Sinclair, where there was that incompatibility between the two that would cause them just enough to hose you. So, but don't cry for the Spectrum because they had a plan. So again, we're talking about the 318 here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the what you see on screen if you're watching at home, that's the 328.
So we're going to roll up to that, but I wanted to mention one more thing with 318, and Britt's right. It had what would ultimately become the MSX standard, but it wasn't quite there. Now, one thing you could do in 83, and I thought I'd never heard this before. I was baffled by this. Spectravision sold a game adapter for the 318 that made it ColecoVision compatible. So you could get an adapter, and I believe it was pretty much like a cartridge adapter.
It was
really all it was. So you can play ColecoVision games. So it's funny. There's a family of games that are ColecoVision, MSX, and their friends are all like in the same wheelhouse of compatibility. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And my understanding, from what I was researching online, and this might not be true because I only saw it mentioned in one place, there's actually a ColecoVision add-on that lets you do 318 games.
What do you mean?
That your ColecoVision could run.
You mean the other way?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. That I didn't see, but I'll take your word on it. So moving on to the next series, the 328. So get this. The 328 effectively is the 318 with some different ROMs and different keyboard. There wasn't a ton of difference between the two. The keyboard, the joystick's gone. That's gone. They changed the cartridge slot size, but otherwise.
Well, and also the keyboard's an actual keyboard.
Right, exactly. It's not chiclet.
And they doubled the price.
Yeah. Well, also, but I mean, to be fair, this one came. This one was also released later in '83, really close to '84ish when this one came out. This one had the same processor. It did have 64K of memory, so it was
that was the big upgrade.
And this one had a proper keyboard, like we mentioned. Now this one, so at this time you've got the MSX standard, and so what they did on this one is basically made it so the cartridges for an MSX will fit this. Okay, so this particular computer is it's sort of kind of in the ballpark of more like what an MSX is.
No, that actually came later.
No. This I didn't say it was identical to MSX, but that's what the ROM update was for. And so there was that, and then
that was the 328.
But effectively, it's the same as the 318 with a ROM cartridge slot change and some ROM changes
and a way upgraded keyboard.
Right now, then your money series.
Yeah,
this is the one that all the kids want. Is the SVI 728. This looks a lot like it reminds me of the Tandy HX in a way. It's got a keyboard with a keypad, cartridge slot. This one is basically a new computer. This also has a Zilog Z80. I said it's a new computer, but same processor. This one came with 64K. So this one had some of the other stuff, but this one was fully compliant with the MSX standard.
There you go.
Right, and so it could play MSX stuff. Now, there is some play in there. So it wasn't 100% MSX compatible, but it was pretty close.
Yeah, it was way closer than the other.
So if you bear in mind, you've got the original Spectravision that could be made ColecoVision compatible, and by the way, Spectravision made ColecoVision games.
Yeah.
So then you've got a machine that is pretty much MSX1 compatible. Okay. And it can play MSX stuff, tapes and cards. So you've got basically the Spectravision sat in this weird area where it was its own thing, then it wasn't, then it sort of was. That's why picking GameSport was a real adventure. There was also, believe it or not, Brent, that particular version of the machine, 728, had a portable version called the 738, and by portable I mean it like you can just lug it around. And then the last one we'll talk about is the Spectravision 738 Express. So this one, this thing it was MSX compliant, but it didn't have MSX2 compatibility, okay? Because at this point, MSX, so this one had some of it, and so Wiki mentions this, and I saw this on a couple places, where this was called an MSX 1.5, where you don't quite have MSX2 compatibility, but you do have MSX1 compatibility and some compatibility with 2. It's very confusing. When this one came out in 85, this is the last hurrah, 400 pounds, and this one was a Z80 at 3.58 megahertz with 64K and 16K video memory. So, I mean, there was not any processor in between amongst all these machines, except for maybe a little tweak to the speed at the end, but the rest of it was pretty much ROM based and changing out the keyboard. It's a confusing trip.
5 computers in like 3 years.
Yeah,
it's insane.
By the way, I should mention that these also could run CP/M, which we didn't mention that. Some of these could run CP/M. I think almost all of them could. I know the last one could. So that's something that you could put into these things. Now, and of course, you've never seen one of these in person, neither have I, but like I said, these are mainstays on Starrcade as prizes. And I always wondered, as a prize, because I mean, this is back when everyone had like a C64 or something like that in America, and I didn't know anyone that had one of these.
Nope.
I've never seen one of these at a yard sale. I've never seen one at a flea market. I've tried to find how many they'd sold. I don't think they sold that many of these before they died. Now, Spectravision, the game publisher, I'd seen their cartridges. Lots of times they have like that silver foil wrap with the rainbow logo, but the game machines or the computers, I'd never seen one in person and still have it. And I looked to see what they were going for just for fun. They ain't cheap, because I think the rarity prevents them from going at a cheap rate. I mean, you're talking hundreds of dollars for these things.
Well, you know where the Spectravision line sold the best in the world?
Where?
Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was Australia was their top sellers, and then they had a few places in Europe that bought in pretty big. America, no. Goose egg. Almost nothing.
Yeah. So, with all that said, of course we mentioned it didn't make good joysticks, and for everything I read, these computers weren't bad. I've got an MSX2 at the house. It's a proper computer. But the last of the Spectravisions, if I was to have that, I would feel like I had something that was pretty decent quality. From everything I've read, it's a pretty decent machine, and the reviews of it were fairly positive. By even the original, the reviews were like, "This is a pretty decent computer for what you pay."
And it really, the Spectravision doesn't get the credit it deserves, not because it was a great selling computer, but it led to a lot of things. Like the MSX standard is huge. That was a huge
in Japan.
Yeah, that was a huge turning point for computers.
Well, in Japan,
right?
Well, I'm just saying we're not in Japan.
Well, that's...
and so, and do they really deserve credit, or did someone just decide that was going to be the standard? And then it's weird.
I don't. There had to have been some.
Like why? Why did they pick this? Why would you? I don't know.
I don't know. You tell me.
You got me. So, with all that said, we were tasked to. So we're gonna talk about this. We were tasked to pick a couple games. Okay, so I picked.
I'll let you go first since you've got the story involved.
Yeah, well, it's more of a disclaimer.
Okay, fair enough.
Boy, my eye was hurt when I was. So I was tasked to pick a Spectrum game, or a Spectravision or Spectravideo game. And so you've got all these different flavors of machines, okay? And so I got on YouTube. I was like, let's have a look at some of these. And I watched some guys demo some different games on the machines.
Right.
And that's funny. The game you ended up picking, I saw that one demoed.
Don't bring me into this.
Hold on. I saw that one demoed, and I thought, that looks pretty good. But when I looked, I was like, I don't think it's going to do that one for me. So I saw another one a guy was playing on the 328. I was like, this looks pretty good. I'm gonna give this a whirl. Okay, so the game I ended up choosing was called Super Cross Force.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Super Cross Force Spectravision video release for the 2600. It got a release for the ColecoVision, and it got a release which I'm going to shoehorn as an MSX / SVI 728 release. Okay, because they were compatible.
Sure.
So that's my ticket in.
But it was never actually released.
Well, it was it was Spectravideo released, and you can play it on the 728. So what else can I do? I picked the game well before I did the research. Let's just put it that way. So, but this does count. It does play on the machine, and you can also play it on the 318 if you have the Coleco adapter. So I'm covered both ways on this thing.
Sure, why not?
So again, the game I picked was Super Cross Force, released in 1983 by Spectravideo / Spectravision.
Which is very common.
And published by them as well. Again, it was released on the 2600 ColecoVision and the MSX / SVI 728. This was released on cart and tape. On tape on the MSX. And is a 1 to 2 player game. You can use the keyboard or joysticks on the Spectravideo version. And this is a game, as I mentioned, that got console and computer releases. So this at first blush, you look at this game, and you're like, what is this? This is a game. This is a shoot 'em up game, space game, where you control on most game modes. You control 2 different firing cannons at the top and bottom of the screen. You're basically picture a space scene, and you have ships at the top and the bottom. They sort of look like Darth Vader's TIE fighter. That's what they look like.
A little bit.
What do you mean? They look just like it. They're exactly the same as Darth Vader's TIE fighter.
I don't remember the TIE fighters being green and purple, or green and orange.
Oh, okay, the colors aren't the same. Now you're getting nitpicky. And in front of a star scene, you will have bad guys that will zoom in from the sides of the screen, and your job is to shoot them. Sounds simple, right? Well, here's the catch. Both your ships will shoot, and but both are also able to be shot from from up or down. So some enemies will just shoot straight down, some enemies will just shoot straight up, and some enemies shoot both ways. So you've got to constantly be aware of your surroundings with both guns, both gun places, and that's the rub. So I've grabbed the docks for this, and of course the docks. I love this era in gaming because it's the cheesiest era.
It is. It really is.
If you'll indulge me,
absolutely. Please go ahead.
This is directly from the documentation. Greetings to all Spectra warriors. You have bravely met all past challenges and have been duly awarded many invaluable citations and medals. Yet now there is an even more formidable menace on the horizon. It's the evil Morples from the planet Tazorus, who have spent months planning a massive attack on the inner solar system, not the outer one. They're fine. You, the elite fighting forces of the galaxy, must rise to the occasion again. The object of the game is to successfully defend the inner solar helix and score as many points as possible. Scoring is definitely part of it. And so you do this with the Super Cross Force. Each section of the Super Cross Force is represented by the Spectron weapon. And when you lose all 4 of your Spectrons, whether you get shot or by de-energization, the game will end. You don't want to get the de-energization.
AKA run out of gas.
Well, it's basically laser fuel. Yeah. And then, of course, no game is complete without a great bad guy. And this one, the nasty Morples. As you know, Morples are mechanoid creatures, meaning that they can survive in the vacuum environment. Once in battle, they are programmed to be self-propelled. Beware! Morples attack in waves according to rank, and the fiercest fighters come later. So there you go. That's the book explanation of this, and there is much more of this sort of speak in here. So this game, I love this on a lot of classic games. A lot of your old 2600 games are like this, and some Coleco. You've got your ships at the top and the bottom of the screen. Now there are two different modes for these ships. You've got basically shooting straight up and down,
Vertical.
Parallel, or you can shoot in the vertical mode, and that way the
vertical
ships
and diagonal.
or diagonal. Excuse me. The diagonal mode, the ships basically mirror each other at the top and bottom of the screen. You shoot basically sideways or like diagonally.
Your bullets always meet directly in the middle, even if one ship's on the left and the other ship's on the right.
This changes the game
tremendously.
feel, right? And I was never sure which one I know which one I preferred when it got tough. So the ships that come in from the side, they come in as they remind me sort of like the demon attack ships. They sort of come in like squadrons. They actually act like ships. It's not like blood money. They just randomly show up. These guys come around and they're in like a wing or a formation.
It's like the Galaga bonus stage.
Right. And when they come in, again, some will shoot up, some will shoot down, some will shoot both ways, and sometimes with deadly accuracy. At the bottom right of the screen, there's a fuel gauge in the classic, and like Brent said, I'm sure most people thought it was your ship run out of fuel. And that's not true. It's actually it's the juice for your laser gun is that thing.
But if you run out, you explode.
And every so often, this giant ship, you'll hear a little fanfare, and then this giant ship that takes up probably a third of the screen comes honing in, which I'm thinking, so why aren't we using this to fight the enemy? And it will drop a little parachuted, which makes no sense. It'll drop a parachuted box, and if you get the box, it's basically laser juice that will juice your lasers back up. You can die in this game by really one of three ways. You can get your top guy shot, you can get your bottom guy shot, or you can run out of laser juice and be de-energized, and then that will kill you. The enemies are quite satisfying. Their movements and stuff, their shooting is different. Some guys will shoot. Also, you've got guys that shoot diagonally. You've got guys that shoot straight down. The action is hot and heavy when this stuff comes on. When I first fired this up, and I was wrapping my head around it, I'm like, man, what an odd. I don't think I've played a game that has this sort of play mechanic. And it got even stranger with the diagonal shooting, but then it gets even stranger still because this game supports 1 to 2 players, and you can actually play 2 players in this, where each of you control a ship independently of each other. So it's basically like top and bottom shooting, where you have a partner, which is kind of neat. I noticed that when you play in the 2-player mode, when you hit the button, both ships fire, and when your buddy hits the button, both ships fire. So the fire is still shared, but the movement's independent. And I can tell you on the later levels, this game you cruise through like level 4 or 5, and then it gets real, brother. About level 6, when they start shooting up and down. This game also has 4 different difficulty levels for each. It's got difficulty levels for each of the firing arcs. So you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 of parallel, 1, 2, 3, and 4 of diagonal. Then 2-player of this. You also have 2 different difficulties as well. I really enjoyed this game. I really got into the gameplay. It runs fast.
It does. It's smooth.
For an old computer. This thing does not mess around. It goes. And I played the Coleco version and I played the MSX version. They're pretty darn similar, frankly. The only real difference is the opening screen where you make your selection. The text looks different. There's not much difference otherwise. Sound effects are good. Good laser noises. I dug this one. I thought this was a big winner, and I like the gameplay element, and I do like the 2-player. I think you get 2 players going, this you can have a lot of fun. What do you think?
This was an interesting game. A few things you didn't mention that I think is worth pointing out.
All right.
The enemies come in waves, and you'll have one wave it'll send out 4 enemies, and then the exact same 4 enemies again, exact same 4 enemies again, exact 4 enemies again.
Yeah.
And then there's another wave.
Yeah, and they're marked too.
Yeah.
So you know what level you're on. Yeah.
The way the enemies come out is you've got this space background, right, where it's got like planets off in the distance.
Yeah.
The bad guys will start like they're coming from those planets.
Oh yeah, I forgot about. There's a depth. There's a perceived.
Very minute.
It is, but I mean, it is worth mentioning. You're right. It looks like they sort of
fly in and out.
It looks like they fly in and out. So there's a graphical flourish there.
Right, and you can shoot them at any point.
Yeah,
they don't actually go in and out. They just get.
Do you think it would have been more fun if you couldn't have shot them when they were doing that?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so either.
But it looks like when they come from off screen, it looks like they're coming from behind you and whipping in front. Or it could be that looks like they're coming from one of the planets in the background. I thought that was a pretty good attention to detail. It was pretty neat. The big fueling ship that comes out, I would have much rather that had been a boss. That sprite.
You'd been screwed.
No, I mean, because it even has 4 nodes in like the corner of each ship that you could have. Those could have been damage points to open up the weak point. I was so disappointed when that thing came out. I didn't even see it drop something the first time because it drops randomly on the screen. It doesn't like drop in the middle every time. And it can drop at the very beginning of the screen, and if you're on the other side, you've got no chance of getting to it. You can't get over there fast enough.
And you can also, the action keeps going.
Yeah.
And so often it would come, I'd be like, what the heck's that? I'd be freaking out, and then I'd get nailed, and then you don't, and it just, you lost that life. Yeah. Thankfully, you get your gun fuel back after the deaths, unlike some of the previous games we played.
So I do wish that was a boss.
Yeah.
I think, or have a boss variant. I mean, one ship comes out and drops your fuel, and then have another ship come along later that's sort of a boss thing.
I do like the gameplay element, though, but the parachuting fuel.
Well, although it made
that.
no sense.
Well,
but
I mean,
it's
an added.
It was fun.
It's an added component.
The shooting in this is fast. It is furious.
Yeah.
However, the enemies, when they come in a wave, like you see the first ones come out, right? And you shoot them down. If you position your guns correctly, this is why I never played vertical, because I thought vertical was way too easy. You can just you can just position to where they're coming out, because you know the next 3 waves of enemies are going to be coming out the exact same spot and the exact same patterns. So you can actually pre-line up and shoot them much like Galaga.
Yeah.
That's okay. When you play the diagonals, it's harder to get those shots because all your shots are basically going to the middle. It's harder to get those shots to line up right where they're spawning. The absolute killer for me on this game, though, the absolute killer, and I don't think this is an emulation thing. I think this is a part of the game because I watched someone play it on an actual system. After every wave, the screen blinks black.
That's the killer. That 1 second blink.
It is really, really disturbing to me.
It is. That's a Brent problem.
It could be.
Trust me, no one else is going to notice that.
Wrong.
No one's going to care.
I guarantee people are going to care about that.
But that's going to do with the gameplay.
It absolutely detracts from the game.
But you don't think you're being a little picky there?
I still like the game.
Come on.
But it hurt me. I couldn't play it for that long.
What do you mean? It just blanks. It's not that quick either. It just blanks for a second when it resets. I know what you're talking about.
It kills the flow, first of all.
Oh, come on.
It kills the flow, and it does mess with my eyes.
Well,
I'm just throwing that out
as someone
there.
who's got trick eyes, I'm telling you, I powered through without any problem.
Well, I found it very discomforting.
You got to admit, and you were talking about how it was too easy. Even on parallel mode, when you get into those, like, when you go to past, say, level 7 or whatever, and they're shooting, not only are they shooting just up and down missiles, but they're floating those, like, bombs out to the side.
Yes.
That gets hot and heavy right there.
It's not like I could play forever. It's that after the first wave came through, being able to line up and shoot right to where they were coming every time made it easier, is what I'm saying. Because the game will certainly, when it shoots, it has bullets programmed to go to the corner that don't look like they're going to go to the corner. Because if you ever try to hide in the extreme corners on this, you're almost guaranteed dead.
I mean, the bullets are floaty.
They are.
And so you got time.
You do.
It's just they release them in bulk. And there's multiple ships firing. So, I mean, it takes a lot of. It's a different sort of mindset for dodging than something like Galaga.
Yeah, I agree.
Which makes that's the rub. That's what makes it fun.
But like with Galaga, there were shots that would go to the corner, so you couldn't hide in the corner all the time. This game, you just don't even go to the extreme corners because you will die.
They want you moving in this, and the thing is, I would love. This is one to put on the list for Thanks for Giving, because I would love to do the two-player duel.
Yeah.
It would. I think we could tear this thing up with 2 independent players.
I do too.
You know, both of us. I don't think I'd want to do diagonal, but maybe we would. See, that's something else. I
don't know how it would work.
It's bizarre. I don't know, but it's something to try. You know, this is also your classic point game. They've got it in the book here. They've got a scoreboard. It lists all the different skill levels and what you get for shooting each guy. And it's at the bottom. It gives you rankings for your scores. At the lowest ranking, you're a Morphle Mopper. Then you're a Cross Officer. Then you're a Laser Lord. And if you get over 100,000 points, you're Medal of King, except they spelled King wrong, or maybe it's Klig. And here's something I've never seen in any book, ever. At the very bottom, the last thing written in the manual, it's almost like they wrote this to future-proof the game. It says, there's an asterisk, and it says maximum score, 999,999. It's got a maximum score. Because remember all those times like Todd Rogers is running, like, I got like 50 billion. You know, this one is Todd Roger proof at the bottom where they won't let you go any further. So I did get some Discord action on this. If you will indulge me here, our good buddy Pajako chimed in. He says, Super Cross Force, a fun take on shooting aliens in the face game mechanic. I managed to make the level 10 on parallel mode. And at that point, the rainbow sparkling aliens really pin you in. It's easy to trap yourself in a corner. Yeah. It takes a few goes to really get your head around controlling and looking up for both ships, and the diagonal mode really broke my brain. I kept thinking I had nailed it and then moved the top ship straight into a bullet. Yes, that's exactly what happens. But it's a good mode to try out. It's funny, you want to move that top ship, and you often don't need to.
Yeah.
I actually thought that the big ship comes through was a baddie, but I found out by accident that it drops a recharge of your holographic lasers. My actual only complaint with Super Cross Force is that ring of the big planet in the top right is the same color as the alien projectiles, which means alien bullets can be hidden from view, leading to some frustrating I didn't notice that.
I didn't either.
Could be the way your monitor set. I started trying some strategies. A lot involved physically moving around on the couch and shouting obscenities at the TV, but I think they worked. I think this game could do with a boss fight to break it up a little, but still good, and I had fun. So Super Cross Force achieved its goal. I don't think I could spend too much time, as there are other better games of this type, but it's worth the play. 8 out of 10. I think, again, I'm going to put this in the same, in some ways it's reminded me of Demon Attack, and the way the baddies moved, the way they had their varied fire. But one thing Demon Attack did have was that awesome boss fight on some of the versions, with the Phoenix rip-off boss fight. This could have used the Phoenix rip-off boss fight to sort of seal the deal.
I agree.
But I will say, the inclusion of 2-player, for me, that gives it an extra bump that puts it over the top to like pretty darn good. I did look this up on the eBay. The MSX tape, when I found, $35, full complete. I found someone selling a sealed Coleco version of this, and it was going for $3.99 or best offer. I saw the loose cart from the Coleco is going for around $23. I found a box.
Doesn't make any sense.
I found why?
Wait, $400?
That's a sealed box copy.
Yeah, that's insane.
The Coleco loose, $23. The Atari box version I found for $33, and I found a loose Atari version for $10 dollar bill. There you go. That's my look. Super Cross Force. Probably you also see this list that is just straight up Cross Force. But if you don't put the super in there, you're a loser. I'm out.
Well, I went with a vastly different game.
Yes, you did.
And my game was a Frantic Freddy.
Yes.
Spelled with a Y. It's incredibly important that you put the Y, otherwise you're not playing the correct game.
Yeah. I spelled it multiple ways in my notes. So, yeah.
First of all, I need to step back.
You're off to a bad start when you just sigh.
this game follows the traditional Spectravision formula, which I did not know was a formula when I picked it, but is very true across all the games that were made specifically for the computer itself.
And this one will run on the original computer?
This will, yeah, and it's ported to a billion different things.
Yeah, because I know there's an MSX port.
The formula they have is multiple difficulties, just like your game had.
Yeah, it's just like the Coleco. It's the exact same setup.
And having one screen be one game, and the next screen being literally a completely different style of game.
Yeah.
A lot of the Spectravision games followed that formula.
Really?
A ton of them.
Okay.
And some of this one at least kept sort of the same characters at least.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's just like having two versions. It's like two levels of Donkey Kong.
This one sort of is. I don't agree with you with that, but we'll get to it. Some of the other examples on the Spectravision are radically different between the two levels.
All right.
And almost all Spectravision games that were made for the Spectravision by Spectravision are only a 2-level loop, which means, you play the first level, you play the second level, and then you play the first level again at a harder difficulty.
Right.
So what is Frantic Freddy? Frantic Freddy, you are a fireman who does not look like a fireman.
Looks like a bug.
But he is indeed a fireman. And you are trying to put out house fires.
He sort of reminded me of like Zorak or something. He's a weird, buggy alien.
He looked like a fire extinguisher with arms and legs and big buggy eyes.
So he's like the firehouse mascot.
So I think the most commented thing on everything I read about this was, why the heck did they choose this as their sprite? But if you go to the instruction booklets, he is just listed as a regular, everyday, run-of-the-mill fireman named Freddy.
He moves well, I think.
He does. Although he moves bow-legged and kind of just dances around.
There's a wrestler who was a wrestling crab. He sort of reminds me of this guy because he'd walk like a crab and he'd do this with his hands.
So, on the first level of Frantic Freddy, made by Spectravision, released in 1983.
Yeah.
The first level of Frantic Freddy is a shooter where you're at the bottom and you are firing. It's supposed to be water, but it's not a stream of water. It is a bullet of water.
It's a blob of water.
Sure.
Sort of like Liquid Kids would throw from that if you played that.
And you have 3 levels of an apartment building are on screen, and different windows are on fire, and you have to run and you have to shoot the fires multiple times to put them out.
Yeah.
All the while, debris is raining down from above that you can shoot and get points for, and then stop it. And of course, if it hits you, it kills you. The added difficulty of this game, which if you're going to play this game, put it at the highest difficulty.
It is more. It's way more.
It makes a more fun game.
It's hard. It gets hard. I mean, like you said, it gets harder every time you play it. So it's okay to start off with the easiest and work your way up, but eventually you're going to skip all the other ones.
I disagree. You're only going to play on 4.
No.
On the hardest difficulty, the fires can blow back and reignite, so you have to put them out at a different time. And it adds the second main character of the game, which is a little orange tabby cat.
Yeah.
And the little orange tabby cat will set on the non-fire lit windows. And he'll make a little meow sound.
Yeah.
And he sits there for a while and then just falls out of the window.
It falls out.
And if you don't run over and catch the tabby cat as it plummets to the ground, he'll die, you'll die, everyone dies.
Yeah.
So it adds a little bit of a fun element.
He doesn't land on his feet.
He does not.
He does not. Not that kind of cat.
On the second level, however, it becomes a climbing Mario or Donkey Kong type game, but not really. You have gutter pipes, which were present on the first level, but were unclimbable.
Yeah.
But now you have gutter pipes and a 4-level structure with sentient fire that will
In
walk around.
In the same way that the Donkey Kong flame could follow you around.
Yes.
It's that kind of sentience. Except this fire obeys no laws of man. It goes where it wants.
Well, sort of. It actually does obey one law, but we'll get to that. So you have these 4 levels. Again, you shoot, but instead of shooting vertically now, you shoot left and right, whichever way you're facing. And you have to put out the fires. But you have to put out the fires in a specific order. The fires are either red or purple, and you have to put out all the red fires before you can put out the purple fires. But the purple fires are special because the lower purple fire can move between levels 1 and 2, and the upper purple fire can move between levels 3 and 4. And when I say move between, I don't mean go to the ladders. It just detects that you're up there and immediately beelines it straight up to be on the same level as
It's like,
you.
I would call it a brisk meander. That's the way the fire moves. Like, it doesn't seem like it's going fast, but since it doesn't have to obey the laws of man, it comes straight up or straight down. You're like, ah!
And the cat does make a return if you get to that difficulty
Yes.
level. But this time, the cat is just hanging out in the window. And if you don't get to the cat in time, it will plummet to its death, and you can't catch it. You have to actually get it while it's sitting in the window.
Well, no, I could catch it when I played it. You could catch it you could catch the cat.
Not on lower difficulty levels, no.
On 4, I could catch it you could catch it. Because
okay.
you could also, because that's also, and I'm sure you're going to get into this, that's where you also get into the secret door area.
I'm going to talk about that. Okay, I didn't have any luck catching it. I would stand there trying to catch it. It would just go through
The
me.
worst thing is when the cat, and it happens only on the climbing level, is the cat can be in the lowest window. And you're standing right in front of it, and it still will fall to its death, even though it falls like about as length of a cat.
Well, remember, even though it splats on the bottom of the screen, you're 4 levels up at this point, so it's actually falling down 7
that's the
levels.
worst.
So you can go over and get the cats. It also introduces warp doors, where there will be 2 blinking doors, either on one on level 1 or 2, that will take you instantly to the blinking door on levels 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Or 4, and they're you use them, and then a little bit later they will reset and be different doors.
At first, I didn't want to get anywhere near these doors because it makes this sinister noise.
It does.
They don't look inviting. It looks like you're walking like into I don't know what. It's like
some kind of trippy like television land.
Yeah.
And that's the game. The game repeats. It gets a little bit faster. The harder difficulties, the fires take more shots. And move a little bit faster. On the lowest difficulty level, you lose the secret doors. You lose the cats.
Yeah.
And that, to me, after I realized what the differences were, I never went back to the lower levels because there's not enough game there without those elements. This is
eventually you would get to the cat.
You would, yeah. This is probably the most beloved game on the Spectravision.
I would say I can see why, yeah.
Okay?
I wouldn't know that for certain, but I can see why. It is wacky.
It is a game that I played that I respect what they were doing, but I didn't have the most fun in the world playing it. I had more fun with Supercross
Force.
Thank you. And this game I thought was, and it's not like Supercross Force isn't repetitive as well, but I just felt like this game was too repetitive. What did you think about this one, Aaron?
Well, I mentioned in the pre-show, I almost picked Frantic Freddy because I saw it. And I thought, but I only saw one screen. I would say he was shooting the fires. I was like, that looks pretty lame, shooting the fires. So I didn't know about the second screen. So you can imagine my surprise when I fired this thing up. And I got to that second screen. I'm like, oh, cool. Because now you're getting into my realm of running around. It is, the second screen and the first screen, they're radically different, but they're still the same. It's sort of like Donkey Kong 3.
Same art package, radically different gameplay.
I like Frantic Freddy. I like the concept that he's a Frantic Freddy the fireman. When they added the cats and the doors, I love that.
Yeah.
The cats, because the cats, I've got a couple cats, and I can see the cats just sitting there looking at you like they don't give a crap, and then just plummeting. That sounds like something a cat would do, And shooting the fires is fun. That second level it's weirdly fun. But I mean, it's tricky. You really have to. I mean, you could get trapped real easy by the bad fire.
Well, you start to realize as soon as you go up and down a level, at the moment you pass over the threshold, the other fire starts going up.
Yeah.
So you can kind of trick it to go up when you need it to go on the lower level, and you have to, especially when it gets a little bit faster. That has to become a strategy for you. The relights where you put out a fire and it just instantly comes back.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen a ton, but it happens just enough that you are aware of it and you have to plan for it.
Yeah. I like the look of it. I mean, it's simple, but they do get something to establish. This is a building. It's got the ledges.
Yeah.
It's got like little pieces where the facade is broken down so you can see behind it. It's got the drain pipe. I like the concept of it. I wish it had, man, this is one, if it had one more level in there, that would have been, you get 3 levels, again, this is 83, I believe.
83.
So their games really didn't have different levels that much. That was early in the game where they were just starting to do that kind of stuff, like Donkey Kong. But I do like this game. It's both these games, control-wise, firing-wise, hitbox, they're totally solid.
It's all good.
You're not gonna be like, oh, this is crap. It's not crap. If you get near the cat, you catch the cat. If you get
the cat can sometimes be finicky because, like I said,
I didn't have any trouble.
I didn't even think you could catch the cat.
Oh yeah, and then I like the idea because if you get far enough into this, the rain of fireballs that come down really affects the game quite a bit because sometimes they'll be right where you have to be to catch the cat. Those doors make the game more fun because that's a good way to trick the fire. And also, sometimes you have to pull like a tapper and go into top door real quick to run down and catch that cat because the cat's falling. There are things that I don't know how far into the game if any more elements change. I don't know how.
Yeah, this is it.
But like there were if you look at the game board on the level where you climb, there are little breaks in the areas under the window, the ledge. And I always thought to myself, I wonder if you can walk right over them.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, I wonder if there's something they could have implemented just to make it where you couldn't go to certain places. Or, that was one thing I would have liked to have seen. There were elements. This is another game. Someone could take this game and run and do something more advanced with it. Both these games, really, you could probably do more advanced stuff. And they're both, I will say this about both the games. Unique games. I've never played anything quite like them. I like them. I actually really enjoyed both the games. So I think this one's a winner. I like this one more than Super Cross Force, but it wasn't. But in terms of the plot, the graphics, I loved it. I liked it more. But in terms of the actual gameplay, I think there's more gameplay to be pulled from Super Cross Sports than there is from this. Just like you said, it's because of the limited amount of stuff to do in this one. I think Cross Sports again adds that dual support, which would make that a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
But I think this is a fun game. I really enjoyed it. Did this get released for anything aside from
everything? It got released for everything.
I saw that Bajaka had mentioned that
Atari,
I saw he said they did a Commodore version of this.
Yeah. In fact, the Commodore has an updated version of this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What did they update? Did you look at it?
Graphics.
Did they do any extra levels on it?
I didn't look that deep into it.
Yeah.
This is knowing that the pattern for games for this computer was this one level, then a radically different level 2. I'm going to have to go back because I didn't find that out until actually this morning. I was doing some last-minute research. And I'm going to have to go back and look at some more of these games because a lot of them, I just jumped in, looked at a 15-second clip, thought, nah, that's not going to be for me.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I picked this game was because so many people enjoyed it. In fact,
Yeah.
I when I first looked it up, I looked up Frantic Freddy with an IE, which
Yeah.
is not on Spectravision. Actually played that game.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then found out, whoops, that's not even the right game. And
Well done.
There is also, just to add to the complication for trying to research this game, there is another Frantic Freddy spelled with a Y for another computer system that isn't this game.
Yeah.
So you really have to know what you're looking for.
Isn't it like Frantic Freddy's Pharmaceutical something or another?
No,
Like
it's
that's
just
that one?
Frantic Freddy. It's crazy how many Frantic Freddy, I can't even say it, there are out there. Aaron, did we get any reviews on this one?
We did. Pajako also chimed in on this one. He says, okay, let's get the big question out of the way. What the heck is Freddy? It's a good question. Whatever Freddy is, putting out fires is their job. The first part of the game isn't entirely dissimilar from something like Galaxian. Later levels see fire reappear, making the game quite tough as the fire pellets fall faster and at a greater rate. And in harder levels, we add those cats to rescue who will jump to their death and yours if you aren't pixel perfect on the catch. The whole thing literally becomes a plate spinning challenge. The second phase changes things to become a different game with a similar aesthetic. With harder levels, they also have cats that need rescuing and doors you can travel through to get to them. Although most of the time it seems easier to use the pipes. And with the sentient purple fires chasing you between floors, the whole thing becomes a task to complete a level without dying. The only thing I would have liked to have seen is that the purple fires show some kind of visual to show you that they are getting weaker when you shoot them. It does. They actually do.
Faint.
They do change color.
Well, the red ones change color a lot more.
Well, yeah, but the purple ones, you basically just the hint is you can't even think about shooting at those until you kill the red fires.
Right.
But they do. They also show a paleness.
Yeah.
Pro tip: purple fires only change floors when they are on a floor not between. Purple fires only change floors when they are on a floor not between. So you can trick them into moving. That's his pro tip. Overall, I like this. It has its niggles like old games do, but it's fun and presents a good challenge curve and one worth checking out. 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. I think those were both fun ones. I think of course, you got to think of the context, the years. These are older games. You're not going to get the depth that we would like to see, but we would like to see the depth. So if we had a personal programmer, I'm not going to put Happy back on the spot, but if we had a guy that we could be like, listen, we found another one we need you to work on.
Add it to your back catalog of like 90 other games we need you to make.
We need you to have a third level where Frantic Freddy can jump. Those little gaps in the lanes are active, and the doors and the cats. Plus, we need to add another element of some sort.
Well, the third level would be your hose is out of water. Now you're just trying to save all the kittens.
That's what it is. It needs to be a hose. There needs a hose involved. That would be fun. I like that idea.
Not hose, Aaron. Hose.
I know. I like the idea of that.
Then the flashing doors have completely different meaning.
And Super Cross Force needs to have a level where you fight a boss ship.
Yeah.
And maybe something where the background changes to another universe scene at some point, which would be nice. But both these two, I think they're fun. The Spectravision, listen, I'm on the lookout, brother. If I saw one of these, one of the later ones come up for a good price, or one of the earlier ones with a Coleco adapter, I might be down. There's like, for the original Spectraforce, I think that there were like 68 games released, the Spectravision.
Yeah.
And then the later ones, of course, the libraries were off the charts because you had all this weird extra compatibility.
I'm in a different wheelhouse. I think if you're going to get one, the 328 is the one to get for the specialized game.
Well, you mean the 318?
No.
Well, I mean, the 328, well, I mean, they both
can. The 328 can play all the 318 games.
That's
I'm
true.
pretty sure.
But if you go to the next one up, then you at least get MSX compatibility.
But then you lose compatibility for the others.
Okay, let's agree. We'd want the 318 for the built-in joystick. There you go.
That would almost certainly break the instant you tried to do anything with it.
Yeah.
The first time you're like, it's like,
I would never let Chad play any games on this thing. I'll tell you that right now. He'd break that thing right off in his hand.
Well, Aaron, Thus begins another wheel-spinning adventure for us.
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
I am. I'm ready. Let's talk about it.
We added the GP32, which you didn't add. That was actually
No, I did add. I did add
well,
that.
you added it, but it was suggested by Retro Dream State.
Yeah, I didn't have. I had a GP2X. I didn't have that
And our retro piece this week is Light Gun Game.
one. Light guns.
A Hermsky request from back
Oh
in the day.
man.
Are you ready, Aaron?
Yes, I am. There it is. And you can actually hear the wheel now. Isn't that nice?
Hopefully.
All right, what do we get? All right, the winner this week is 2D Saturn Games. 2D Saturn Games.
That's pretty interesting.
This is a request from Benz. That's with Benz with a Z, folks. But 2D Sega. So that means next week, Brent, we're going to be tasked with picking games from the Sega Saturn that are of the two-dimensional variety. It's funny, the Sega Saturn so desperately wanted to be the PlayStation and play things in 3D. The problem is they crammed 73 different chipsets in that thing.
They did.
And then they were like, well, we're not going to give you any sort of programming tool. Just figure it out. And hilarity ensued. But there's plenty of good 2D. In fact, some people would say that the Sega Saturn is the pinnacle of 2D home console gaming.
I would probably agree.
I mean,
The Neo Geo is pretty good, though.
Well, but this was years after Neo Geo was out. And also, I will say the Dreamcast is in there. They had some 2D stuff.
But it wasn't their focus.
So that'll be a lot of fun. That'll be in a couple weeks, Brent. Next week, we're going to be back in the R. Sinclair mode.
Saying you don't injure yourself anymore.
Yeah, as long as I don't get hurt. And the game that was chosen by Clive's Club, the Game Selection Committee, Where Time Stood Still. I will say I was in the Discord earlier.
That's a deep dive.
I was in the Discord earlier, and someone had put up the promo stuff for magazine ads for this game. They were great. They were sexy. They were action-packed, caveman-y. So this is going to be some sort of thing with dinosaurs and cavemen and cannibals. Should be a lot of fun. I've heard a lot about this one. I've never played it.
I haven't played it, but I have heard about it.
So I'm looking forward to that. So that will be next week. And then in 2 weeks, Brent, we'll be back in ARG Presents mode with 2D Saturn games. I think that's all we got. You got anything you want to plug before we call it a night?
Nope.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week for When Time Stood Still.
We got it going. With a spin of the wheel, we'll uncover fate and stream it to you all in one take. We tend to be loud and we fight quite a bit, but it's an unscripted show, so you get what you get. If we started right now and we just walked away, we'd be back next week, 'cause we just can't wait to play.